Singleton. He is the legal expert. Anytime you're wanting to bring a game to the floor, this is the man that MGM and many other folks go to. And basically everybody I've talked to in this space said gaming, NFTs, development, bringing this into the Vegas ecosystem, this is the man to do it. So Quentin, welcome, and I'll let you introduce the folks on your panel. You're on.
Thanks. I don't know. I'll take the far seat so I don't have to belabor the legs of my a lot of firsts, right? We were just talking about this. Tell us about the first things you've been doing, what the product is, and how you are changing the landscape for poker.
Sure. So I got started on Virtue by meeting Joe Lubin in 2015 in August, just after Ethereum launched. We were born out of the initial incubator model of Consensus. So I've been working on this for over 6 years, and Virtue's a blockchain-based peer-to-peer poker app built on Ethereum. And the way that we operate is we have really kind of two key innovations, at least on the real money client, which is one is we employ a peer-to-peer card shuffling protocol. So all players seated at a table are involved in shuffling. There's no server involved. And then we use a combination of Ethereum mainnet smart contracts and a private sidechain solution to handle all of the gaming transactions. So we provide a degree of transparency to players in terms of knowing how their money is stored and knowing that it's secure. And then yesterday, we launched Virtue Gaming, which was a free-to-play, play-to-earn product here in the US that we actually are integrating into Virtue Poker on the same network. So I'll start with that.
So let's give a little history, right? We all know this well, but maybe our audience doesn't. Let's talk about the poker world, right? So we had a poker boom for online poker in the US. What were the years? I'm too tired to remember.
It was 2003 when Chris Moneymaker won the World Series of Poker main event.
To Darren and talking about money and payments, because in the regulated gambling environment, we have this concept that the players' funds are of utmost importance to us, right? And so you have to be able to know that when you walk into this casino right here and you put your money down in the cage and we're holding that money for you, you can walk back and that money is there. Even if we went bankrupt tomorrow, you can walk in and say, here's my dollar, you get it back. And that scandal was like a gut-wrenching moment to say, who's watching the bank now? Literally hundreds of millions of dollars, lots of money, online, in some account, somewhere, but how do I know it's really there? It's always been a big question in the online gaming space. And the other part of payments, right, is the cost of the transaction. So, Darren, why don't you walk us through the world of payments and what every one of the biggest payment providers, amongst other things, payment operators in the gambling space, what are you guys doing?
Sure. So Everi's a diversified gaming company. There's actually two verticals in it. One is actual games. So we've actually got a games manufacturing business. There's also a part of that business that provides the system for the New York Lottery. That's half the business, maybe slightly over half. And then there's the FinTech side of the business, which I manage. Legacy payments, if you think of gaming, brick and mortar, how you access funds to enjoy your entertainment experience. Through innovation, through acquisition, we've diversified significantly in that we've gotten into the AML business for casinos. So we provide a lot of the major platforms for the AML systems that the casinos use. And then we've recently gotten into the loyalty business, so meaning the players' cards, right? That's significant, and these are all very mission-critical tools for the operator. So when we think about these examples of maybe online and poker and whatnot, our CEO is a former chair of the Nevada Gaming Control Board and attorney, and so when he thinks of our business, obviously he's got a conservative lens, and my job is to push the envelope a little bit, and getting into call it these alternative payments is something that is of great interest to us, and so we've been actually looking at this for several years, right? We looked at we've talked to a few startups several years ago, just in terms of blockchain technology in itself, right? What are the applications to the things that we're providing to our casino customers and to their patrons at the end of the day, because we have a significant relationship with the end patron, right? As much as we're providing services to the casino operators, our relationship has a lot to do with the experience that the player has actually when they go through their journey inside of the casino. So we often describe a lot of the things that we do, part of our digital neighborhood. So if you think of all of the things that we're touching when you come into a brick and mortar casino, it's how you access your funds for your entertainment experience. And remember, casinos aren't just about gambling. It's Vegas is more than the casino, and putting your money in a slot machine or a table. There's the loyalty aspects of which we touch and we bring together, and then the AML aspects of it, right? KYC, knowing your customer, and then doing all the things from an AML standpoint that if you look at what the things that FinTech are guiding now is more risk-based, right? Sort of more due diligence-based, and then triangulating, making sure who your end customer is. And so these mission-critical things, I think, bring opportunities for blockchain technology, but certainly the payments, right? I think what is challenging for vendors in this space is getting regulators comfortable with actually what you're bringing to the table and making sure that it's scalable, across all these diverse jurisdictions. I mean, we're regulated and licensed in, hundreds of gaming jurisdictions, commercial and tribal. And so bringing some technology, it's got to be scalable so you get it across all these different gaming jurisdictions who, they don't all have the same rules. Amazingly enough, you'd be surprised how the brick and mortar rules in Nevada are different than the brick and mortar rules in New Jersey. Forget about online gaming. I mean, that's a whole other level of rules and regulation that they've created, which I don't want to say they're
Sure, which is where it's aligned with this conference, right? We're here to do trust. You have to be, as a consumer of the products that this industry sells, you have to trust it no matter what. We will always give you your dollar and pay you out if you win. Two, the other thing that this industry is founded on was the regulatory aspects of transparency and that layer of trust. And then effectively the third one, which is, we could debate whether there's alignment there, but it's taxation and the collection of taxes for the government. And that's the sole foundation of everything that the gaming industry started from. And so when you look at the alignment across the systems we build or the things we're doing, and then we start talking about blockchain and crypto, I think to your point, Darren, we're saying these things are aligning, and now we got to say, okay, we've created our barriers to bring into innovation, but we have innovation that's about to swallow this industry, so how do we get it in? So with that, I'm going to kick it to Alex and BitBoss. So tell us what you're doing. It's very, very cool, and you've actually, crossed the Rubicon in Colorado, or you are crossing the Rubicon in Colorado, and you're bringing this actually into the world of regulated gambling right now in the U.S.
Yes, yeah. BitBoss is a Denver startup, and we are a blockchain-based technology company that provides a cashless solution for land-based casinos. And we also have a product that allows you to send in cryptocurrency into a partner exchange of ours and get back US dollars in the form of a stable coin that we've created, and use that stable coin to fund your online sportsbook account. So all of our product set is based on a stable coin that we've created, and it is backed one-to-one by actual money in a US bank. So the idea is that you take a white-labeled app that we provide a casino, and you ACH or use debit to get funds into the account. Basically, that money goes into a pooled bank account, and then you get BitBoss tokens, which represent your share of that bank account, and they're therefore FDIC-insured crypto tokens. And the reason why we're not using an existing stablecoin like USDC or USDT is that we need to do more. We need to have restrictions on how that token is used in our ecosystem, even if that ecosystem grows. As long as it's in the U.S. land-based casino space or online space, we have to be able to follow regulatory guidelines, max balances, funding limits, transfer limits by day, by week, by month, et cetera. So that's the basic concept, and we do also, I'm sure we'll come to this later, but we also have a non-US based product, which is a gaming platform that is run entirely on the Bitcoin SV blockchain. Every bet is a transaction on the blockchain. Every bet result, whether there's a payout or not, is also a transaction on the blockchain. So that's a different product for us.
So, and what did you specifically build on? Was it we said BSV, and then why did you choose that versus something else? I mean, could you provide a little insight into why? Because there was obviously a lot of different choices, a lot of different ways to go. Why was that kind of what was the rationale there? And then when you brought it into the regulated gambling space, can you describe what that conversation looked like or felt like, or how that translated and occurred within the state of Colorado?
Sure. Yeah. So for our cashless solution, we have a token that is based on sitting on top of Bitcoin SV. So the token runs on Bitcoin SV. One of the reasons we did that is we partnered with a company in London called Enchain that has a lot of patents in blockchain, and they've built in partnership with us an enterprise level double ledger accounting system. So the token is more than just an ERC20 that moves around. There's a lot of really solid accounting that is built into the protocol and is part of how we can sell to land-based casinos and show them how they're going to have full auditability, traceability. You get that with blockchain, and just in terms of like everything being on chain and being immutable and searchable later, but then adding enterprise level scale and accounting functionality on top of that was important for our product. In terms of Colorado, which is our launch state, we've worked with the regulators, and it started with, well, how are you going to do crypto if it's so volatile? And you're giving the casino Bitcoin, and then the price changes by $10,000. And we explained, so we had to kind of educate them on stable coins and that whole concept, and in particular how our stable coin is backed by one-to-one with fiat in a U.S. bank, which is where the SEC is going in general. So it's an easy explanation after you get past just the word crypto with a regulator. And then from there, honestly, it was really about them understanding with our sponsor casino how the money flows, what the flow is at the casino. When someone uses our app and says, I want to buy into the blackjack table for $500, they send 500 BitBoss tokens from their custody in their wallet, which is a non-custodial wallet in the casino's app, to the casino's custody, and then they get chips. So they wanted to make sure that there was a sign-off process by the player, and they wanted to see the auditing and the traceability of, okay, so if the tokens move from Alex to the casino, did they get chips? Did they get the right amount of chips? What's going in the drop box? Things like that. It was really about process.
Yeah, this is like, this is where I geek out a little bit, because this is very exciting, right? So, going back into my older days in the casino industry, we have this concept called chain of custody. And so we would literally track, and this is when you used to be able to play slot machines with coins, or then eventually became, cash inserts, which then became Tito tickets, which became, moving to a paper ticket with a barcode was a huge thing. Literally we would track, and this is what Alex is describing, every single flow of every single dollar across the casino floor. And you might not see a lot of it, but there's slots in these tables where we'll go back into cash. We still do cash, but you go back and basically there's a drop box, right? And that drop box is a lock box, and only certain people have access to that lock box. Only certain people can pull that lock box actually from the table. Only certain people can put a lock box back in. And so there's a complete chain of custody for every single dollar, every single coin, every single token, well, we don't use tokens yet, but every single chip, every single Tito. Literally, we track every single piece of paper that reflects some, and Darren's smiling, he knows, there's everyone.
We help them do that.
Yes, and so we literally track everything. And And we've built very complex systems to make sure that we can track it all and we can audit it's transparent. And so, there's actually a question that came from the audience, which I think is like, apropos, like, I think 100% we all agree, like, almost blockchain is, if not in fact, like, perfect for the industry. It solves or does exactly what we've been doing physically, or in some systems we have now. We do run systems, but it is really solving for that. But I kind of want to open it up. Let's just start going through these questions as they come in. Like, why hasn't blockchain yet exploded in the regulated gambling industry? That's his word, not mine. Exploded. I was blown up. I'm huge. In a good way.
I suppose I could take it from like more of the online perspective. So, well, first, I can just kind of speak to what I've done within the online poker space. Up until about 2018, there wasn't really any regulator that would take your fate in your own hands.
Well, let's pause there. Like, and this is like, there's literally like hundreds of regulators in the world.
Yeah.
So he's literally saying the global world
The UK
would not,
still doesn't
would not
accept
do
anyone.
it. Would not accept it. So this is not that long ago. This is just a couple years ago. So all right, sorry to interrupt. But
Yeah. So then what happened was, we saw that the Maltese government came out with a sandbox environment that they were going to allow companies to operate within and have it be kind of a mutually beneficial learning experience to help develop a licensing structure. So then we went and participated in that, and for the course of 24 months, was able to work with the government in Malta, and we obtained the first and only blockchain-based license for an online poker app there. But throughout the process, the regulator needed to be educated, right, in terms of what was possible. So originally, it was kind of structured that we would have to verify the identity of a player before they ever played, before they ever deposited. And I was like, you might as well sign our death warrant, and especially in the crypto space. Like, I was like, well, how about we figure out a way for us to create the necessary controls, deposit limits, withdrawal limits, self-exclusion, all of these different kind of components, and within a sidechain environment, and allow players to deposit and play and require the KYC upon the withdrawal. And we were able to get that done, which made it feasible. So after kind of going through that regulatory process, we then had to launch and get users. And the biggest barrier for us to kind of scale and grow is the adoption curve of crypto itself. So in order to play on our site, you need to have a wallet that you have custody over, and you need to deposit either Ether or our token to play. So already you're narrowing the pool of people who can initially play on the app. However, this year was great for us as more and more people became familiar with the industry, have bought and owned cryptocurrency, but that's the number one thing.
the events
for
of
us.
last year advanced
It
the
did,
adoption.
I'm rooting for like the work of larger companies than us to try to push regulators to have a appreciation and want to begin working with companies like ours. But from the player perspective, that's what you're faced with, right? You need to be familiar with this industry. You have to own crypto, and then you have to trust in submitting a deposit. However, this year, especially with the exponential growth of gaming, crypto gaming this year, has, I think, started making consumers more comfortable with interacting with blockchain-based applications. And I think, to kind of answer the question of our person here is, I think you're going to see in 2022 more and more blockchain-based games become actually scale to like levels of traditional gaming, right? Talking about tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of players playing on a single platform. And within, kind of what we're doing, the free-to-play, play-to-earn mechanic is a great onboarding tool. So that's what we launched just yesterday here in the US, which is you can download an account, you register, and we fund you for free to play. So essentially that allows someone who might be a little bit nervous or isn't quite comfortable with this technology yet to interact and play poker with chips that we give them without any cost to themselves.
Yeah.
So like that's what I think is a really good onboarding tool for at least, what we're doing.
Yeah, and I think, what do you guys think? Like, you're trying to summarize that too. So I think there's like, we talk a lot about trust here, right? But I think there's like two pieces of that trust, which you just described really well, which is the player side of the trust. Like in the online space, it was always like, who can I trust who will not take my money and actually pay me when I win? We've solved more or less trust within the land-based space, but now we're bringing in like a whole other way to measure what is trust, right?
And we needed trust from both the regulator and the player. Neither one trusted us to start, right? So
Right,
that was
right.
what we had to work through over the last couple of years.
Yeah, and what's interesting is like what we're talking about here is we have trust on this side of the fence right now. But in our industry, we have like a second layer of trust, right? And Darren, talk about that. Like when we try and bring in new innovation into this industry, to this question, how long does it take to do something new? Because you've been cracking this at a very flexible, innovative jurisdiction like Malta, and it still took a couple years. Like, what do you see as that litmus test or that curve to when we can bring innovation in? And that if you could also, talk about that second layer of trust that we've built into our environment, where we're hand in hand going to our own regulators saying, here's a new thing I want to do, walking them and jump in and everyone, right? Because this, walking them down the path to say, this is why this is good for us. There's a whole life cycle to that before we can even get into the industry.
Yeah, look, reality is if you think of brick and mortar gaming, this whole cashless concept, it's been around for a while. I mean, as much as sort of you've heard the last, call it 18 months about cashless in brick and mortar gaming is something new. It's been around for a long time. Tito is cashless, right? When you and that's if you play a slot machine, feed your money in, there's cash going in, but when you cash out, you get this paper ticket. So that in a form is cashless, and that replaced tokens, right? Back in the day in Vegas, that you always heard these people carrying on these buckets and full of coins and full of these tokens. But you would think that this paper ticket, that was much easier to move these monies around, and you think, well, that should have just happened overnight. It didn't. It took probably 5 or 6 years so that actually be something that the entire industry consumes. So from a cashless standpoint, sort of a digital wallet standpoint, in the brick and mortar space specifically, we launched, I believe we were pretty much the first and maybe in the world from a brick and mortar standpoint, is to attach a external digital funding method into a gaming system so you could fund directly into like a slot machine or a table. And we launched that last year. Even though we've been talking about this with our customers for several years, we've talked about cashless. I mean, I would love to get rid of cash because cash is expensive for us. We're a provider of ATM platforms into the gaming industry. We transact billions and billions and billions of dollars through that platform, and cash is expensive. The operators would like to get rid of cash. This is if you can go cashless and bring in these trusted systems and transparent systems, then there's a tremendous opportunity there because there is a significant cost of physical cash. And so the pandemic actually drove the industry regulators and the operators to go, we want to be able to introduce this because they all, I would say, not necessarily accurately so, that somehow cash was some kind of vector for this thing that we went through. I would say I'd be more worried about what's on your phone than what's on a bill. But so I think look, the industry is a slow follower for what happens out in the wild. And when I say so, the gaming industry, especially the brick and mortar, they're a slow follower a lot of times with technology, and it's the burden of the regulatory environment because this legislation gets created, it gets put in, and then somebody's reading this, and some of this stuff is very old, and then you want to introduce this technology, and what you're introducing solves for what their intent was, but the way it's worded then requires some, act of
magic.
Yeah, right. But that's just the nature of government regulation. But to your point, right? Look, they want at the end of the day, players and regulators want that game of chance. The outcome of that is trusted, right? They want that money, those funds coming in are not coming in from bad actors. It's not some form of money laundering, because you'd be surprised that might happen in the gaming industry. And so how do you solve for that with this technology? How do How do you, find, again, in this technology, something that is going to be ubiquitous so that, one jurisdiction, another jurisdiction are going to use the same types of things. I mean, as an example, digital ID, digital driver's licenses, right? There's in the South, there's, they're launching these digital IDs. So now you have to be able to consume that as an operator. So, well, how am I going to, I need to verify this now. Like, what is that? And so this is in one state. So now, companies like us, I have to now adapt that because, the state that's launched that, well, that person, that patron, well, he might come to Vegas, he might go to Atlantic City, he might go to Florida, he might go to Oklahoma and want a game, and he's got this digital ID. How are you taking that? Because there's technologies today that prior to this discussion, they were talking about IDs that are issued here in the United States, driver's license and passports, and the security around that.